Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. While the rest of the football world is busy pointing fingers, calling for firings, and writing think pieces about what went wrong, Mike McDaniel is doing something different. He's talking about winning. That's not a headline we see often when a team is sitting at 1-6. But for the Miami Dolphins head coach, this moment isn't about his job, his reputation, or his critics. It's about his players, his locker room, and the belief that a bad stretch doesn't define a team. When the Dolphins walked off the field in Cleveland after being embarrassed by the Browns, it wasn't just another loss. It was their sixth in 7 games, a collapse that sent social media into a frenzy and fans into panic mode. Yet, amid the noise, McDaniel didn't flinch. He walked into his post-game press conference and gave an answer that told us everything we need to know about how he leads. "So the way I look at this job," he said, "is I find it very offensive to all parties involved if I'm thinking about having the job. I need to be doing my job." That line right there might sound like coach speak to some, but to anyone who's been paying attention, it's a window into McDaniel's mindset. He's not pretending things are fine, but he's also not giving in to panic. He refuses to play the political game that so often swallows NFL coaches whole. In a league where head coaches are often hired to be fired, McDaniel's stance feels almost rebellious. He's not going to waste a second thinking about how long he'll last. He's too busy trying to fix what's broken. Now, let's be honest, there's a lot to fix. The Dolphins didn't just lose to Cleveland, they imploded. 11 penalties, 6 fumbles, 3 interceptions, 31 points allowed. Just 6 points scored, both of them field goals. It wasn't a football game, it was a slow-motion disaster. You could feel the frustration oozing out of the team from the opening quarter. Miami wasn't just beaten on the scoreboard, they were beaten in discipline, execution, and poise. McDaniel didn't sugarcoat it either. "We did everything we could to lose the game," he admitted. And he wasn't wrong. At one point, it felt like the Dolphins were competing with themselves to see how many ways they could sabotage their own drives. Missed tackles, blown assignments, dropped passes, and mental mistakes stacked up faster than the scoreboard could keep up. For a coach who built his reputation on offensive creativity, precision, and player empowerment, watching his team crumble like that had to be infuriating. McDaniel's Dolphins were supposed to be fun, fast, clever, unpredictable. Instead, what we saw against Cleveland looked like the opposite: hesitant, sloppy, and disconnected. Even Tua Tagovailoa, who once looked like a perfect fit in McDaniel's scheme, appeared lost. His 3 interceptions weren't just bad throws. They were the kind of mistakes that come from overthinking, from pressing, from trying to force something that isn't there. It's the mark of a team that's lost its rhythm, and that's exactly what McDaniel is trying to restore. Still, it's worth remembering who Mike McDaniel is. He's not a typical football coach. He's not the hard-nosed, scream-in-your-face archetype. He's cerebral, self-aware, and unapologetically authentic. He's the guy who can talk about football like it's art 1 minute and crack a joke the next. He's not a win-at-all-costs dictator. He's a builder. And that's what makes this moment so fascinating, because right now, everyone around him is shouting, "Fire him," while he's whispering, "Fix it." That mindset might not win over the impatient fans, but it's the only one that actually has a chance of saving the season. If you listen closely to McDaniel's words, there's something powerful in the way he frames his role. "You have a job, you do your job, and you do it to the best of your ability," he said. There's no denial there, no arrogance, no finger-pointing, just responsibility. He sees himself as a steward of a process, of a group of men, of a culture. That kind of humility is rare in professional sports, especially when the vultures are circling. It's easy to be confident when you're 6-1. It's something else entirely when you're 1-6 and everyone is ready to move on from you. Yet, here's McDaniel, standing tall in the middle of the storm, not because he's immune to pressure, but because he's grounded in something deeper than the scoreboard. What's striking is how his players respond to that energy. Even in defeat, there's no sense of mutiny inside the Dolphins' locker room. You don't hear anonymous quotes or whispers about losing faith in the coach. That's telling, because in the NFL, when a team truly gives up on its coach, it leaks fast. But right now, despite the frustration, you can feel that the locker room still believes. They might be frustrated, but they're not fractured. And that's McDaniel's doing. He's built an environment where accountability doesn't mean humiliation, where mistakes are opportunities to grow, and where the human element of the game still matters. Of course, belief alone won't win games. The Dolphins have to execute. The penalties have to stop. The turnovers have to stop. The offense needs to rediscover its identity. And Tua needs to play with the confidence that once made him one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. That's the hard part, because confidence, once lost, isn't something you can coach back with words alone. It's earned through moments, through execution, through wins. But McDaniel knows that. He's been around long enough to understand that the lowest points can become defining ones, if you handle them the right way. His challenge now is not just tactical, but emotional. How do you rebuild belief when the record says you're done? The good news for Miami is that the season isn't over. Far from it. There's still time. Time to regroup, to reestablish identity, and to rediscover that spark that once made the Dolphins the most exciting offense in football. But that turnaround won't come from desperation. It'll come from discipline. McDaniel's words after the game weren't about defending himself. They were about protecting the process. That's what separates him from coaches who panic when the heat turns up. He's not trying to survive. He's trying to evolve. And in the long run, that's what successful coaches do. They adapt without losing themselves. You could see flashes of what the Dolphins could be even in their chaos. There were moments, brief, fleeting, where the offense still had rhythm, where Tua and Tyreek Hill connected, where the defense held its ground. But football is a momentum sport, and right now, Miami has none of it. The challenge isn't just to call better plays, it's to reset the mentality. The great teams don't just play, they respond. They turn setbacks into fuel. McDaniel understands that better than most. His background, from being dismissed as too quirky early in his career to becoming one of the NFL's most talked about minds, is built on resilience. This is just another test. It's easy for fans to forget how thin the line is between winning and losing in the NFL. A single play, a single bounce, a single decision, that's often the difference. And when things start going wrong, they tend to snowball. That's what's happening in Miami right now. But McDaniel's calm might be exactly what the Dolphins need to break the cycle. His refusal to make it about himself is a message to his team. Stop focusing on the noise, start focusing on the football. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. When McDaniel said, "I think it's offensive to all coaches, players, and the organization if I'm spending that precious time thinking about myself," it wasn't just a line for the cameras. It was a philosophy. The best coaches lead from service, not ego. And in a league obsessed with blame, his approach feels almost radical. That's why, even at 1-6, there's something oddly inspiring about the way he's handling this moment. He's not promising miracles. He's not selling false hope. He's just committing, fully, fiercely, to doing his job. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of leadership Miami needs right now. In the end, this season will define a lot for the Dolphins. It'll test their resilience, their leadership, and their identity. It'll show whether Mike McDaniel's belief in process over panic can withstand the brutal realities of the NFL. But one thing's for sure, while everyone else is busy talking about firing, Mike McDaniel is still talking about winning. And in a league that often eats its own, that might be the bravest thing a coach can do. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? The NFL is in shock. The sports world is buzzing, and fans everywhere are questioning everything they thought they knew about professional football. Because today, the unthinkable has happened. The league has officially confirmed the cancellation of the game that took place between the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets, citing serious irregularities that have thrown the entire NFL into a whirlwind of controversy and disbelief. For months, the NFL has prided itself on being the pinnacle of competitive integrity in American football, but this unprecedented announcement has sent ripples through stadiums, living rooms, and social media feeds across the country. The news broke quietly at first, an official statement released in the early hours, but as details started leaking, it became clear that this is not just a routine investigation or a minor officiating mistake. This is a scandal that could redefine how the league handles games, referees, and even the credibility of its teams. Fans of both the Dolphins and the Jets are reeling, not just from the immediate impact on their favorite teams, but from the larger questions this raises about the sport they've invested in emotionally, financially, and culturally. Imagine sitting through a full game, celebrating a touchdown, reacting to a key interception, only to find out that the entire contest has been nullified, its results erased from official records, and all stats rendered meaningless. That is exactly what has happened, and the reverberations are immense. Sources inside the NFL, speaking on condition of anonymity, suggest that the irregularities may involve multiple layers of the game, from officiating errors that appear more systematic than accidental, to potential rule violations that no team should ever be allowed to commit. Rumors are swirling about whether technology, such as replay systems or even communication devices, could have been tampered with, but nothing has been officially confirmed. The league's statement was deliberately vague, perhaps strategically so, leaving the door wide open for speculation, which is now spreading like wildfire across sports media. Analysts, former players, and even casual fans are trying to piece together how a professional sporting event could reach a point where cancellation after the fact becomes the only option. Some commentators have suggested that this could set a precedent for the NFL taking retroactive action against games in the future, potentially reshaping the very nature of competitive accountability in professional football. The implications are enormous. Playoff implications, player statistics, fantasy football leagues, betting markets, all thrown into chaos overnight. It's the kind of story that you don't expect to see in a sport where rules and structure are supposed to be sacrosanct. The Dolphins and Jets have both released statements, carefully worded but brimming with tension. Miami's organization expressed disappointment but pledged full cooperation with the league's investigation, emphasizing that the integrity of the sport must come first. Meanwhile, New York's statement was even more pointed, hinting at frustration and incredulity, with the Jets noting that they had played the game in good faith and that the fans deserve answers that go beyond official PR statements. Social media exploded with reactions almost instantly, with hashtags trending across platforms as fans, commentators, and even casual observers debated what could possibly constitute an irregularity severe enough to cancel a game after it has already been played. Memes, video clips, and speculation-filled threads multiplied by the second. Some are calling this a historic moment in NFL history, comparing it to the infamous Deflategate saga, but noting that this could be even bigger, potentially affecting league credibility in a more direct and undeniable way. Former players are weighing in with their own suspicions, some defending the integrity of the game, others warning that this could indicate systemic issues that have been simmering beneath the surface for years, unnoticed by the public until now. Inside league headquarters, sources hint at high-level meetings involving team executives, officials, and legal advisors, all trying to assess the fallout and plan the next steps. Decisions about whether players' statistics will count, how fines or penalties might be imposed, and even whether the game will be rescheduled or permanently stricken from the record books, are reportedly still under heated discussion. Rumors suggest that the NFL could consider drastic measures, including suspensions for personnel deemed responsible, fines for teams, or even a restructuring of officiating oversight to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. Sports networks are lining up experts to dissect every possible angle, from refereeing to coaching decisions, while the rumor mill continues to churn with unconfirmed reports of behind-the-scenes lobbying by teams trying to protect their interests in the wake of the cancellation. Every segment on TV and every podcast seems to open with the same shocking premise. The Dolphins versus Jets game never happened officially. And for many fans, that revelation is hard to process, because the memory of watching the game, celebrating big plays, or enduring crushing defeats is very real, even if the league now insists it didn't officially occur. One particularly explosive rumor circulating among insiders is that the irregularities might involve an unprecedented breach of rules regarding player eligibility or conduct during the game. While no names have been confirmed, whispers suggest that a combination of coaching decisions, player substitutions, and even questionable referee calls may have created a situation that could not be reconciled after the fact. Analysts are speculating whether this could impact the draft, salary caps, or even team reputations going forward. Imagine the Jets and Dolphins suddenly facing a historical footnote that will follow them forever, a canceled game, a voided contest, and the implications of controversy that could ripple into every facet of the organization. For fans who have invested years in their teams, following seasons of ups and downs, the announcement feels almost surreal, like a plot twist in a dramatic sports film. But this is real life, and it's happening in the NFL, the very league that prides itself on precision, competition, and fairness. The mental image of players shaking hands after a game that technically never counts, the celebrations that now have no official place in history, and the fans' outrage all combine into a narrative that is gripping, almost cinematic in its magnitude. Meanwhile, betting houses and fantasy football leagues are scrambling to adjust. The cancellation has reportedly triggered hundreds of thousands of dollars in unresolved bets, leaving sportsbooks in limbo as they attempt to determine payouts or refunds. Fantasy football players are equally affected, with points earned during the game potentially disappearing from weekly scores, causing chaos in leagues across the country. Legal experts have begun weighing in on whether any contractual obligations were violated and what ramifications the league might face for retroactively canceling a game. Lawyers specializing in sports law are poring over NFL regulations, team contracts, and player agreements, trying to forecast the impact of this sudden upheaval. Some are even suggesting that this could inspire lawsuits or arbitration cases, depending on the league's next moves and the eventual details that are revealed about what truly happened during the Dolphins-Jets matchup. As the story continues to unfold, fans and media alike are left with more questions than answers. The NFL's decision to cancel a game retroactively is historic, unprecedented, and deeply controversial. Social media is awash with speculation, from plausible scenarios involving officiating errors and rule violations to more sensational rumors of intentional misconduct or technological tampering. Former players and commentators are debating on live broadcasts whether the league has set a precedent that could haunt it for years, while others are simply stunned, trying to reconcile their memories of the game with the official statement that now denies its existence. The Dolphins and Jets face immediate scrutiny, their next matchups now colored by uncertainty and the shadow of scandal. Fans of both teams are left to wonder whether the league's transparency will hold up, whether justice will be served, and whether this unprecedented incident will fundamentally change how games are conducted and officiated in the NFL. In short, the sports world is holding its collective breath, waiting for answers, explanations, and accountability, because one thing is certain. After today, nothing in professional football will feel quite the same again. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.